Hey there, YouTube. I'm Jack, and this is Raw Tropical Living. Thanks for joining me today. Hope you guys are doing all well out there. Hope it's not getting too crazy where you are with this holiday season. Here, 2 days away from Christmas, the stores and everybody's hustle bustle out there. So it's all good. I'm not really doing too much myself, so I'm just kind of enjoying watching other people enjoy the holiday season. Anyhow, the title of the video today is Love Everybody and Tell the Truth. I don't know if you're a follower, if you knew who he was, but Ram Dass left this plane yesterday. He was 88 years old. So I've just kind of been thinking about him today and doing a little bit of reading, and just thought I'd do a little bit of reading, share a little bit of my reading with you that are just some stories and some things about Ram Dass and his life that I would like to share. So anyhow, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I'd appreciate if you'd go down there and hit that subscribe button now. Come back, check out a little bit more of my content. And with no further ado, let's get started. I kind of got on the Ram Dass thing a little bit late in the game. I wasn't terribly familiar with him just until the last few years, and I bought his book, Be Here Now, which is really good. I've enjoyed reading that. And yeah, just a real interesting person. Love everybody and tell the truth. That's the name of one of the articles I'm going to share with you. And I'm talking about it from this angle because his guru, a man he met in India early in his life, was just a huge part of his teachings, his sharings, whatever you want to call it. So let's read it. Ram Dass asked his guru, Neem Karoli Baba, who you might hear. You've probably never heard that name before. He's usually just talks about him as Maharaji. What can I do to get enlightened? And Maharaji replied, love everybody and tell the truth. So Ram Dass, taking what his guru said in earnest, tried this practice. But after a couple of days, he came back to the Maharaji and said, I tried it and found out that the truth is that I don't love everybody. That kind of truth that Ram Dass was talking about is the lie that lies between you and your enlightenment. Identifying with your negative emotions, believing that your anger, disappointment, hatred, aversion, or sadness is the truth. Even making statements like I am angry, or I am disappointed, or I am sad is a way that we use to convince ourselves, to lie to ourselves about who we really are. Most of us do not have training that helps us to understand where negative emotions come from, or that we could choose to feel them or not, that they are an option, not a given. But nonetheless, because of our conditioning and our own reinforcement of that conditioning through habit, when they do arise within us, we actually do feel them. And at that moment, they do seem pretty real. Their presence is so wrong that it is not easy to ignore them. As with a person who is aggressively coming at you, the classic bully, for example, it is difficult to ignore them and walk away because you get caught in the web of their energetic vibrations. You feel their anger and it makes you feel afraid. So as bullies identify with a negative emotion like anger, you, while in their presence, can also identify with a negative emotion like anger or fear. Emotions can be contagious and can influence the way others feel about themselves. Why are negative emotions so popular? Because they feel satisfying. At least they provide a temporary feeling of satisfaction in that they cause you to feel alive. This is one reason why they can become so addictive. You become addictive to anger because it pumps you up. There is a corresponding chemical release of adrenaline. Your heart beats faster, blood circulates, and you feel empowered. Sounds good, eh? Well, not for someone who is searching for enlightenment, the realization of the oneness of being, because that empowerment also feeds your sense of isolation, as it gives validity to your separateness. Negative emotions always affect you psychologically by intensifying feelings of separateness and isolation from others. Most of us are brought up to feel disempowered. It's me against them. I need all the strength I can get to fight against the odds. The whole world is against me. And as with most addictions, you build up tolerance so that you need more and more stimulation to feel the rush. It is a downward pulling spiral. Anger can lead to disappointment, which can lead to frustration, which can lead to sadness, which can lead to depression, and on it goes. With each downward spiraling, you train your mind, your body, and your endocrine and nervous systems to meet the requirements of your craving. And eventually you are caught in a dark place of confusion, self-absorption, and self-loathing, the antithesis to enlightened awareness, which is typified by freedom, serenity, and ease of being. Anger and other negative emotions may feel right and justified at the time, but Ram Dass eventually realized, as he continued to practice what his guru had suggested, it was more interesting to be free than it was to be right. Spiritual practice is about letting the sun shine in, or shedding some light into the darkness, or expanding that which before appeared narrow and constricting. This growing into wholeness will be difficult as new ways of reacting to situations are tried. Growing pains tend to be painful. The goal of spiritual practice is mind expansion, or cosmic consciousness, where your sense of self becomes so large that it incorporates all of existence, dissolving boundaries between self and other. Deep in our hearts, we all basically want the same thing. It doesn't matter who you are. You may be temporarily in the body of a human being, or a dog, a cat, a bird, or a cow. But beyond outer differences, all souls yearn for love. To start to see yourself in others cultivates positive emotions like friendliness and compassion. This will lead to tolerance and the ability to recognize commonality rather than differences, which will bring you to love, the experience of connection. Love will bring us to the real truth, the real truth that we are one. That was a good one. Another one I got here is, it's like, what does it mean to be here now? I kept hoping to get esoteric teachings from Maharaji, but when I asked, how can I become enlightened? He said things like, love everybody, serve everybody, and remember God, or feed people. When I asked, how can I know God? Maharaji said, the best form to worship God is in all forms. God is in everything. These simple teachings to love, serve, and remember became the guideposts for my life. Maharaji read people's thoughts, but beyond that, he knew their hearts. That blew my mind. In my own case, he opened my heart because I saw that he knew everything there was to know about me, even my darkest and most shameful faults, and he still loved me unconditionally. From that moment, all I wanted was to share that love. Although he knew I would have liked to stay with him forever in early spring of '67, Maharaji told me it was time for me to return to America. He said not to tell anyone about him. I didn't feel ready, and I told him I didn't feel pure enough. He had me turn around and looked me up and down intently. Looking into my eyes, he said, I don't see any impurities. Before I left India, I was told that Maharaji had given his Ashirvad, his blessing for my book. I replied, what's an Ashirvad? And what book? I didn't start out planning to write the book that became Be Here Now. Be Here Now is Maharaji's book. As I sat in the Delhi airport waiting to leave India, a group of American soldiers kept staring at me. I had long hair, a full beard, and was wearing a long white Indian robe that looked like a dress. One of the soldiers approached me and said, what are you, some kind of yogurt? When I got off the plane in Boston, my father, George, picked me up at the airport. He took one look at me and said, quick, get in the car before someone sees you. I thought, this is going to be an interesting trip. 40 years and one near fatal stroke later, it is still quite a journey. Being here now is even more relevant for me. Being in the moment, at ease with whatever comes one's way, becomes contentment. This practice allows me to be present to love and serve others, and to express unconditional love in the world. When you are fully in the moment, this moment is all there is. It feels like time slows down. When your mind is quiet, you enter into the flow of love, and you just flow from one moment to the next as naturally as breathing. Whatever arises, I embrace it with love in the moment. This is my practice of following the mirror to reflect Maharaji's love. In this moment, there is just awareness and love. If someone asks me how to get into their heart, I give them this practice. I am loving awareness. This one's a good one too. I've heard this story, a similar story through Krishna Das, but this one's written by Krishna Das. Meditate like Christ. One day, a Canadian man. This is interesting, from them being in India, the gurus, and they're mixing things up a little bit there, or they're anyway. Listen, one day a Canadian man arrived for his first visit with Neem Karoli Baba Maharaji. He didn't know much about Maharaji, but had heard about him. Maharaji didn't give lectures or formal teachings, didn't write books, and as far as I know, didn't formally initiate people. He just kept shining like the sun. Flowers don't need to read a manual on how to bloom in the sunshine. So when Maharaji asked this man why he'd come and what he wanted, he was unsure how to respond. Finally, he replied, "Can you teach me how to meditate?" Maharaji's response was, "Meditate like Christ. Go, sit in the back of the temple with the other Westerners." The guy came to the back and we asked him about his darshan. He told us that Maharaji had said to meditate like Christ. At first we were surprised. What? Meditate like Christ? What does that mean? But then we thought about it. We were always trying to get Maharaji to tell us what practice to do, but he'd never give any specific instructions about yoga or meditation. Now he'd said this. If he said it, he must know how Jesus meditated. We decided to ask him about it. We were so excited. We were going to get the secret teachings at last. Later in the day, when Maharaji came to the back of the temple to hang out with us, one among us broached the subject that had us all buzzing. You said to meditate like Christ. How did he meditate? It seemed as if Maharaji was about to answer, but instead his eyes closed and he sat there completely still, completely silent. It felt like he had totally disappeared. In all the time I'd been with him, I'd only seen him sit motionless like this a couple of times before. It was extraordinarily powerful, as if the whole universe had become silent. Then a tear came down his cheek. We were in awe. After a couple of minutes, his eyes opened, and with great emotion he quietly said, he lost himself in love. That's how he meditated. He was one with all beings. He loved everyone, even the people who crucified him. He never died. He is the Atman, soul. He lives in the hearts of all. He lost himself in love. Once again, Maharaji had gone right to the heart of it all. I was stunned. There was nothing I wanted more than to be able to lose myself in love. But there was nothing that seemed farther away. As Kabir once said, it is easy to bear the heat of fire, and likewise it is possible to tread the edge of the sword. But to sustain an unchanging love is a most difficult business. And this is from Krishna Das in Chants of a Lifetime. Very special being, very special being. Getting lost in love. He shared a really important message with the world, and the world's just a little bit lighter today with him not being in it. So anyhow, just wanted to pop in and share with you guys a little bit, connect just a little bit. Happy Hanukkah if you're celebrating Hanukkah, which I've got some friends that are. Merry Christmas in a couple of days if you're celebrating Christmas. Happy Kwanzaa, if you celebrate Kwanzaa. It doesn't really matter. Just stop arguing with each other. Just, find the things we have in common. Look for the things we have in common. Love each other. And that's it. Anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed this one today. If you like it, I'd appreciate it if you'd give me a thumbs up. And I'll see you again a little bit later in the week. Love you guys. Peace.